On July 26, 2022, 41-year-old Aftab Hussein was found lying next to his vehicle on Rhode Island Street in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He had sustained multiple gunshot wounds. He did not survive his injuries. Investigators determined that his killer had hidden behind a bush located near the driveway where Aftab regularly parked his car. When Aftab got out of his vehicle, the killer then shot him multiple times through the bush. Aftab was a Muslim man who was originally from Pakistan. In Albuquerque, he worked at the well-known Flying Star Cafe. Another Muslim man was shot and killed in Albuquerque just a few days later, on August 1st. Muhammad Afzal Hussein was killed in a drive-by shooting near the intersection of Cornell Drive and Garfield Avenue while he was out for his evening walk. His brother had to identify his body and see how distorted the shooting had left Muhammad's face. Muhammad was originally from Pakistan and had studied law and human resource management at the University of Punjab before he and his brother came to the United States on student visas to attend the University of New Mexico, where he earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in community and regional planning. He served as the president of the Graduate and Professional Student Association while working on his master's, a position he won with 72% of the vote. According to his brother, Muhammad had the courage to speak up when others would not, which was part of what led him to wanting a leadership position. He was working towards obtaining U.S. citizenship and had hopes of a career in politics once he obtained it. At the time of his death, Muhammad was a well-respected member of the planning team for the city of Espanola. He had a 90-minute commute each way to work every day because he chose to live in the same apartment complex as his brother in Albuquerque so that he could be a major part of his brother's children's lives. Just before he was killed, he had been given the opportunity to live in a house on a 100-acre ranch owned by the city of Espanola, and he was looking forward to this new chapter in his life. The murders of two Muslim men in the same city in such a short amount of time raised concerns that the two crimes may have been connected, and that Muslim men were being targeted by a killer. Authorities also considered the possibility that a third murder may also have been related. 62-year-old Muhammad Zaher Ahmadi was a Muslim man originally from Afghanistan. On November 7, 2021, he had been shot and killed behind the halal market he ran with his brother. Funeral services and a luncheon were held for Aftab and Muhammad at the Islamic Center of New Mexico on August 5, 2022. Several Albuquerque police cars were stationed nearby at the mosque's request, and the department announced it would be increasing its presence near all the mosques in the city for the time being, in light of the murders. One of the more than 1,000 people in attendance at the services was 25-year-old Naeem Hussein. Naeem had come to the United States as a refugee from Pakistan in 2016, fleeing persecution he faced there as a Shia Muslim. He had been a United States citizen for less than a month. Upon his arrival in the United States, he worked as a truck driver, and once he obtained his U.S. citizenship, he began his own trucking company. He took great pride in his job and worked extra shifts when there were supply chain issues, because he knew people were relying on goods being delivered. Even before he was officially a citizen, he loved the United States and its citizens, and wanted to help them get critical supplies. He was a hard worker who supported himself, as well as his family, back in Pakistan. He was working to bring his wife to America, and looking into purchasing property in Virginia. His brother-in-law described him as the most generous, kind, giving, patient, and down-to-earth person that I could ever meet. Following the funeral, Naeem made plans to meet up with some friends who also worked as truck drivers at his apartment, but he never showed up. His friends left his apartment to attend holiday services for Muharram at a Shiite mosque, but Naeem did not show up at the mosque either. He was not answering phone calls or texts, so his friends used an app they utilized to track each other's movements while they were driving their trucks to try to find him. The app showed that Naeem's vehicle was near the intersection of Truman Street and Grand Avenue. His friends arrived at that location around 11:20 p.m. They found Naeem's white 2020 Toyota 4Runner in the parking lot of Lutheran Family Services, where Naeem had previously worked with other refugees as a caseworker, helping them resettle in the area. The vehicle's engine was running and its lights were on. When they got closer, his friends discovered Naeem's body slumped across the front seat, which was covered in his blood. By this time, the Muslim community in Albuquerque was in a state of panic and feeling as though they were being targeted. Some people tried to leave the city, and others would not leave their homes. When they did go out, many people chose to travel in groups. The Islamic Center of New Mexico issued a public warning for its members to be cautious, and the governor of New Mexico sent additional state police to Albuquerque after Naeem's murder. The Albuquerque police increased their presence at local mosques, the University of New Mexico, and Muslim-affiliated schools. The amount of fear the murders inspired in the community also inspired community action, which ultimately led to the arrest of a suspect. Hundreds of tips were called in to authorities, and residents who lived near the crime scenes voluntarily uploaded footage from their home surveillance cameras to a portal for law enforcement to examine. This effort resulted in police finding footage of one of the murders, with gunshots appearing on the video, which then showed a vehicle speeding away from the scene. Authorities released an image of a dark silver sedan, which they believed was most likely a Volkswagen Jetta, to the public. The car was described as a vehicle of interest in the 4 murders. The FBI and the Albuquerque police subsequently received numerous tips about a possible suspect who drove such a vehicle, 51-year-old Muhammad Syed. Syed was arrested by FBI agents and Albuquerque police detectives near Santa Rosa, New Mexico, more than 100 miles east of Albuquerque, on August 9, 2022. He was driving his Volkswagen Jetta at the time. He claimed he had been going to Texas to look for a new place for his family to live. He cited the unsafe conditions for Muslims in Albuquerque, illustrated by the 4 murders, as his motivation for wanting to move. At this time, he was charged with just 2 murders, the killings of Aftab Hussein and Muhammad Afzal Hussein. Prior to his arrest, investigators had learned that Syed and one of his sons had purchased multiple firearms and firearm accessories from several gun shops in Albuquerque, with the first purchase recorded in January of 2021. 2 of the firearms they purchased were of the same calibers as weapons used in the murders. While searching the Jetta, police found numerous bullet casings. Testing revealed that 2 of them were a match to a casing found at the scene of Muhammad Afzal Hussein's murder. Syed's home was searched at the time of his arrest, and further evidence tying him to the murders was discovered. Numerous firearms were located and collected for testing. A rifle found underneath Syed's bed was found to be the weapon used to kill both Aftab Hussein and Muhammad Afzal Hussein. Syed and his family came to the United States from Afghanistan in 2016. He worked as a truck driver, although apparently not on a regular basis, and the family struggled financially. He was married and had 6 children. His wife and children were the alleged victims of numerous incidents of domestic violence that received police attention. Syed had been arrested on misdemeanor offenses related to these incidents, but the charges were always dropped. Syed's daughter Lubna was a frequent alleged victim of her father's violence over issues like her refusal to allow one of her brothers to chaperone her when she attended college classes, and her relationship with the man who would become her husband. She told CNN that her father was initially angry over her 2018 marriage, but had come to be more accepting of it. Her husband was friends with both Aftab Hussein and Naeem Hussein. She did not believe that her father could be a murderer, despite his history of violence. Authorities stated that they found evidence during the search of Syed's home that he knew the 4 victims in at least some capacity, and that they believed interpersonal conflict played a part in the motivation for the murders. Syed had a previous known conflict with the first suspected victim, Mohammed Ahmadi. 2 years prior to his murder, Muhammad had confronted Syed over a suspected food stamp fraud scheme he was trying to carry out at the market Muhammad co-owned with his brother. Syed allegedly purchased large amounts of rice from the market using food stamps, and then tried to return it for cash. According to his brother, Muhammad confronted Syed and then refused to let him into the market at all because he did not like dishonest people and would not participate in fraudulent activity. Syed returned to the market at least 3 times to threaten the family and would sit outside the building in his car after being forced to leave. In early 2020, Muhammad and his wife left Friday services at the Islamic Center of New Mexico to find that 2 of the tires on their car had been slashed. Security footage from the mosque showed someone slashing the tires, and the mosque reportedly identified Syed as the culprit. He was then banned from the center. On August 22, 2022, Syed was also charged with the murder of Naeem Hussein. This charge stemmed from the surveillance video of a car similar to Syed's fleeing the scene of the shooting. Ballistics testing also tied Syed to the crime. Syed has so far not been charged with the murder of Muhammad Ahmadi, but investigators have stated that he is the prime suspect in that case. Syed's son, 21-year-old Shaheen Syed, has also faced legal troubles connected to his father's arrest. He was arrested the same day as his father, August 9th, and charged with providing false information when he purchased a firearm in 2021. While purchasing 2 military-style assault rifles at a firearms dealer in Albuquerque, Syed provided an address in Florida on the transaction record, despite not living at the address. In November 2022, he agreed to a plea deal in which he pled guilty and was given a sentence equal to the amount of time he had spent in federal custody since his arrest. He was placed in a halfway house and also given 3 years of supervised release. The younger Syed has not been charged with any of the murders believed to have been committed by his father, although federal agents did testify at his initial detention hearing that there was evidence he helped his father coordinate the ambush-style murders. Shaheen accompanied his father to the gun store to pick up 2 AK-type weapons, one of which was later used in the murders of Aftab Hussein and Muhammad Afzal Hussein. He also went with him to a custom gunsmithing shop where an optical scope was attached to one of their rifles. This work was done on August 1st, 2022, just 6 hours prior to the murder of Muhammad Afzal Hussein. Cell phone records also indicate that father and son were cooperating, leading up to the murder of Naeem Hussein. The elder Syed followed Naeem from the Islamic Center of New Mexico, where he had attended services for 2 of the other murder victims, to Lutheran Family Services. Shaheen's cell phone connected to his father's phone at 3:39 p.m. near the Islamic Center of New Mexico, 2 minutes before his father drove off, allegedly to follow Naeem. Father and son then had several brief phone conversations. Muhammad Syed has denied any involvement in the murders and remains in custody. "24-year-old Rebecca Contois was the mother of a daughter, and, according to a family friend, she had a heart for everything. She was soft-spoken but had a friendly personality. Rebecca was a member of the Crane River First Nation, but grew up in Winnipeg. Members of her community came together to help search for her when she suddenly went missing, but when Rebecca was finally located, she was not reunited with her family. On May 16, 2022, her remains were discovered in a garbage bin behind an apartment building in Winnipeg. The following month, more of her remains were located in the Brady Road landfill, south of the city. On May 18th, 2 days after Rebecca's remains were first located, police arrested 35-year-old Jeremy Anthony Michael Skibicki and charged him with first-degree murder in connection to Rebecca's death. Authorities have stated that he and Rebecca knew each other, but not in what capacity. They also revealed that they believed there was a possibility that Skibicki had other victims. The extent of the crimes believed to have been committed by Skibicki would not be known for several months. On December 1st, 2022, the Winnipeg Police Service released a press release announcing that Skibicki was now being charged with 3 more counts of first-degree murder, bringing the total of such charges he now faces up to 4. The remains of the other 3 victims have not been located. Winnipeg Police Chief Danny Smythe has stated that their remains are most likely in the landfill, where some of Rebecca's remains were located, but police will not be able to search the site because of its massive size. Still, police say that they have enough evidence to recommend charges of first-degree murder for the killings. They also have stated that DNA played a role in this investigation, but have so far not elaborated on how it was used. Due to the ongoing proceedings, they are limited in what information can be released to the public. It is now believed that Rebecca Contois was Skibicki's final victim. The identity of the woman believed to have been Skibicki's first alleged victim has not been determined. Investigators believe she was most likely an Indigenous woman in her 20s, and that she was killed around March 15th of 2022. They have released an image of a reversible baby fat brand coat with fur trim, similar to one they believe she owned, and ask anyone who recognizes it and could identify its owner to contact them. The other two alleged victims had been identified as 39-year-old Morgan Beatrice Harris and 26-year-old Mercedes Myron. Both women were members of the Long Plain First Nation. It is believed that Morgan was killed on May 1st, 2022, the last day she was seen alive. Morgan was a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 1. She had a strong spirit and was afraid of no one. I want her to be remembered as happy-go-lucky as she was. She was silly, she was fun. People loved to be around her, her daughter Cambria has said. Morgan was homeless at the time of her death, and according to Cambria, when they were out looking for her while she was missing, every person they talked to knew who Morgan was, and no one had a bad thing to say about her. Cambria has been critical of the decision to not further search the landfill for remains, calling the choice disgusting. She believes her mother and the other victims deserve to be brought home. Mercedes is believed to have been killed on May 4th. She had been missing since March, last seen in Winnipeg's North End. She had been living on the streets at the time. Her grandmother, Donna Bartlett, had made appeals to the public, trying to find her. A motive for the killings has not been determined, although Skibicki showed support for openly racist organizations and conspiracy theories on his social media accounts. All of his alleged victims were Indigenous women, although investigators have stated that they cannot be certain if this was intentional or coincidence at this time. Skibicki's ex-wife had been granted a 3-year order of protection against him in September of 2019. Skibicki has been in custody since his arrest for Rebecca's murder in May and remains at Milner Ridge Correctional Center. He appeared in court on December 2, 2022, where he was directly indicted on the 4 counts of first-degree murder, meaning the case will proceed directly to trial without a preliminary hearing. Skibicki's lawyer says that his client will be pleading not guilty to all of the charges against him. Between March of 1990 and February of 1991, the St. Louis area saw a string of murders attributed to a murderer who came to be known as the Package Killer. This moniker stemmed from the fact that the victims were all found in public areas in large, visible containers. 2 victims were found in garbage cans, 1 in a wooden box, and 1 in between 2 mattresses. All of the murders had connections to an area of South St. Louis known for sex work at the time. The victims were Robin Myhan, 18, Donna Reitmeyer, 40, Brenda Pruitt, 27, and Sandy Little, 21. Robin, Brenda, and Sandy all had young children when they were killed. Sandy's body was the last to be discovered in February of 1991. At that time, the St. Louis Major Case Squad made an arrangement with the FBI. They agreed that the next time the body of a suspected victim of the Package Killer was found, they would seal off the crime scene and wait for the FBI to arrive and process the evidence. However, there were no more victims, and therefore no new pieces of evidence in the case, which then went cold for more than 3 decades. Sandy Little's body had been discovered in O'Fallon, Missouri, giving police there the authority to investigate the case. O'Fallon police detective Jody Weber reopened the case in 2008 and worked on it for 14 years before it was finally solved. Technology did not advance to the point where DNA evidence could be identified on any of the evidence in the case until 2022. Even then, some of the DNA evidence had been compromised, and Sandy Little's now adult son, Chris Day Jr., had to provide a sample of his DNA to confirm that his mother's DNA was on the same item as the DNA of her alleged killer. Police reportedly have 4 pieces of physical evidence tied to both the alleged killer and to 3 of the victims through DNA. Once the DNA profile of the killer was developed, finding out who it belonged to proved to be very simple. A match was found during a search of the FBI's combined DNA index system because the alleged killer was incarcerated. On September 19, 2022, prosecutors announced that the Package Killer had been identified as 73-year-old Gary Muehlberg, an inmate at the Potosi Correctional Center in southeastern Missouri, who was serving life without the possibility of parole for the 1993 murder of a man named Kenneth Atchison. Kenneth was an acquaintance of Muehlberg's who wanted to buy a car from him. Muehlberg killed him, took the money he was going to pay for the car, and hid his body in a makeshift coffin in his basement. The DNA evidence connected Muehlberg to the murders of Robin, Sandy, and Brenda. Detective Weber went to the prison to confront him with this evidence in the summer of 2022. Once prosecutors agreed that he would not face the death penalty, Muehlberg began cooperating with them. He confessed to murdering Robin, Sandy, and Brenda. He also admitted to killing Donna, whose murder was suspected to have been committed by the package killer, but never definitively tied to the other murders until this confession. In addition, Muehlberg claimed that he killed a fifth woman, whose name he does not remember. He says that after he killed her, he put her body in a metal barrel, which he left at a self-service car wash. Authorities are working to try to identify this woman and determine what became of her body. Muehlberg is currently facing 4 charges of first-degree murder in the cases of Brenda, Donna, Sandy, and Robin. In a phone interview after his confession, Muehlberg stated that he did not know why he started or stopped his killing spree, as he had paid many other women for sex, but had not killed them. He tried to claim that he confessed to try to do something positive for the victims' families, an assertion that is not supported by the fact that he did not choose to admit to his crimes until he was confronted with physical evidence tying him to them, and he knew he would be facing charges. He also wants to quickly confess to and be sentenced for his crimes in court, claiming he wants to spare the victims' families the stress of a trial. However, those who know him say he is most likely more concerned with losing his cell on the honor block in the correctional facility if he is away facing trial for too long. None of the relatives of Muehlberg's victims, who have spoken publicly since Muehlberg's identification, believe he thinks about anyone but himself.